Has X become a right-wing cesspool of racism and misogyny? That's a claim often made by folks in the mainstream media, but some contrarian voices are also sounding alarm bells about the state of Elon Musk's personal social media platform. River Page, a reporter for Bari Weiss's Free Press, thinks there is some merit to the claim that X, formerly Twitter, is once again becoming toxic. When it was Twitter, the platform was, in my view, often overly promoting of progressive viewpoints. But now, is it off in the other direction? Here with us to discuss is River Page of the Free Press. Thanks for joining Rising.
Thanks for having me, Robbie.
So why don't you elucidate your thinking here? And look, I agree. We're maybe going to argue about some things, but X has become, a conservative media property with a lot of right-wing voices. Some of them over the top. Is that what you're focused on here?
Well, it's the fact that it's become a right-wing echo chamber in the same way that old Twitter was a left-wing echo chamber. And the problem with that is that when you're in an echo chamber, particularly an elite one, which is what Twitter is, everybody that makes culture, everybody that makes news, everybody that makes policy is on there. What it's going to do is it's going to all of the increasingly extreme ideas that become mainstream online are going to be filtered down to the normie masses through culture and through media and through policy, and it's going to freak them out because this is what happened with the left. So if you go on Twitter now, what you're seeing is crazy anti-Semitic uh, memes like Holocaust denial, stuff like that, stuff against interracial marriage, crazy stuff against Indians, against gay people. And this isn't coming from small accounts, this is coming from accounts with hundreds of thousands of followers. And it's also coming from people that, are working in the government now. Like Elon Musk just rehired a guy who said that we should normalize Indian hate and that you can pay him to marry outside of his race. So, I think that the right is falling into the same trap that the left fell into, which I tried to warn them about as somebody who was on the left, um, former Bernie bro. Is that, I told them, everything you're saying is insane. It's going to alienate the working class. And that's what happened. And I think that's what's going to happen to the right now as well.
And what do we think about why they're actually saying those things? Because I get that your broader argument, River, is that it is ultimately electorally or politically damaging for either left or right to go to these extremes. But I mean, how worried should we be that there seem to be significant numbers of people on the right who believe things that are, in fact, flat out racist things? I'm not saying that everyone, of course, on the right is a racist, but the acceptability, on X at least, of expressing those views and the widespread nature of them being expressed, how worried should we be about all that?
I mean, if you're a conservative, I would say you should be pretty worried because it's going to come back to bite you.
Right, but I mean, shouldn't you be
The
worried about it just regardless of your political disposition because it's so toxic?
Sure, yeah. I'm not, it's often hard to tell how these things translate into real life. I mean, people were doing crazy mass shootings and all that whenever they had to go on 4chan. I don't know if it's going to be worse now because it's on Twitter. But I mean, I will say that Twitter sort of uniquely, it's the hate site, right? And I mean, I'm on it. I like arguing, I like fighting with people, not as much as I used to, but I still do it. And the algorithm on Twitter feeds conflict. And when there are no more libs left to own on Twitter, it's the conservatives who are going to have to start owning each other, which means taking these increasingly extreme points of view where things that like may have been more fringe are going to become more and more normalized. And if the people who are making culture and politics in this country are on there, that's going to become normalized to them. And how that uh, susses out, I don't know. I mean, I feel like we've already seen, on the Republican side, for example, um, a return to this, like a sort of like gay bashing that really, even in conservative parts of the Republican Party, was sort of taboo. Um, after 2015, that's kind of come back where, people are just openly saying that they want to like overturn gay marriage and stuff. It's not a ton of people, it's not Trump, but that viewpoint does seem to be becoming more and more normalized, which as somebody at a gay marriage, I mean, I think that's alarming.
Yeah, look, I've heard enough people say this that, I'll take your word for it, or people who disagree on other things say that it's become more toxic in terms of the anti-Semitism or like posts against interracial marriage. I have not seen an increase in that kind of stuff personally on my own feed, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. I just haven't seen it for whatever reason. But enough people have told me that it is that way. But I guess, like, what's the remedy, right? Elon Musk very deliberately said, I'm taking over this site. I think the moderation was too aggressive. I think trying to take down too much of that stuff also involved in capitulation to a government that wanted us to take down discussions of Hunter Biden and COVID and all that. And so we're just, we're doing more hands-off moderation, and that means more people are going to say crazy Nazi stuff or crazy racist stuff or anti-gay stuff, and that's my commitment to free speech on the site. The problem with with it becoming more of a silo, that problem I take very seriously. But again, there's just no remedy for that. If all the liberal people want to go beyond Blue Sky, which is becoming the biggest echo chamber of all, like a site where geared toward the hunting and for blood sport of Jesse Singal is not really a healthy place either.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you do about it. If Elon wants to hire me as like an advisor, I guess I could figure something out for him. I don't know. I think if you are somebody who's on the right, and you see people that follow you, being insane, you can try to stop them. I didn't work for me on the left, but maybe it'll work for you. I mean, I think at the very least, you know, not rehiring someone who said that they don't support interracial marriages and think that hate against Indian people should be normalized. I mean, that would be a good place to start as far as tamping down the rhetoric. It doesn't mean you have to ban everybody. It doesn't mean that, somebody has to be canceled forever. But, you know, if you say crazy racist things on the internet, are you entitled to a job in government? Like, I don't think so.
River,
I think
go ahead.
the the right holding their own people accountable a little bit, to use, the libtard language. I guess that's as best as I can advise.
River, just one final question before we're out of time. Obviously, this piece that you wrote appeared in the Free Press. Now, I think certainly most people on the liberal side have come to see the Free Press as, I don't know if necessarily conservative is even the right word, but certainly mostly focused on what the writers and editors seem to think of as the excesses of progressivism or liberalism. What has the reaction been, either online or elsewhere, from the readership to this piece that you wrote?
Oh, I mean, our readership is like, a lot of them really liked it, actually. I think it was one of our like most read pieces over the past week. So there were a lot of people who didn't like it. And I, I don't really care. That's the thing with the Free Press, is that we publish a lot of different viewpoints, and people are free to agree and disagree with whatever they like. If you are coming for like a straight conservative party line, if that's what you're looking for, the Free Press probably isn't the best place for you, because we publish all sorts of things. We like to hear from both sides. We even do these things called fight clubs, where we make people argue with each other and debate. And we host our Free Press debates. Like, we're all about different viewpoints. And so, I mean, maybe it surprised some people. It probably shouldn't, because Barry gave a speech at ARC in London, saying more or less what I said in my article, a couple of days before we published it. So, I think that, at the Free Press, we are dedicated to free exchange of ideas, and, we are extremists, and we don't really defend extremism. So.
Yeah, I did say on some podcast this weekend, I can't remember which one it was, that I wish the online right-wing people would go, like, everything has to be an 11 out of 10, when sometimes an 8 out of 10 would just do just fine. That's my similar advice to the online right. River Page, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Next up, Joy reads tearful goodbye to her show. We will discuss.